Non-consensual sex, which is bad, and then we have consensual sex, which we think is always good. That's what the culture says. That's what a lot of us have, most of us, it seems like that's the idea that we have. It's like, as long as they're consenting adults who choose to do this thing, then it must be okay. Moral sex. There's a lot of disordered, gross, harmful sex that is nonetheless consensual. All of the cases that I mentioned, they're all immoral, bad, gross, harmful. But they're not all rape. We will be stuck trying to condemn all bad sex on the grounds of consent, which expands the idea of consent so broadly as to render it meaningless, so that when we really need it, when there is actual non-consensual sex happening, we don't have any meaningful way to describe it, because the word consent has become is increasingly means nothing.
So Matt Walsh is just a man who believes that people under a certain age can give consent to sex. And if you're wondering why he's saying those words in that particular order and struggling to say good sex, bad sex, consensual sex, all bad sex must not be consensual sex anymore, because he truly believes in his heart of hearts that someone who is a child can consent to sex. That's what's going on here. I want to bring you in here, Ben, just so we can briefly unpack what's been said. I mean, the use of the words good and bad is curious here, because I think we also know Matt Walsh thinks that gay sex is bad sex. And the use of the word good and bad is interesting, because I think a lot of us have had consensual sex that was not good. So Ben, what are your thoughts on Matt's initial rant here?
Yeah, that's what he's trying to do. He's like, that's okay, you can call some of the sex that I have bad sex, just don't put me in legal jeopardy. That's what this man is saying, that he urgently needed to pull over on the side of the road and vlog about. It's so important for him to explain that consent should just be the word yes or no. It shouldn't also be whether somebody, like you mentioned, is of age, or whether somebody is too inebriated to give consent, or any number of reasons, which should also count as not consent. He's saying, come on, pretty please, just make that consent, but you can call me a dirtbag. But I don't want to go to jail for apparently the kind of sex maybe Matt Walsh likes to have, perhaps. That's why he's defending it so vehemently, urgently screeching to the side of the road to share his thoughts. Is he driving back from a weird sexual encounter at the moment? The next morning, is it a drive of shame? What is this man doing?
Yeah, he's like, I gotta get ahead of this. Let me pull over, let me mic myself up right here in the car. He just keeps a mic on him, I guess. Really ridiculous. And he had more to say, so let's watch this.
Involving Cardinal McCarrick. You hear about Cardinal McCarrick and the controversy surrounding him. Now, there are accusations that he molested children. So, that's in that category. But then a lot of the accusations you hear about McCarrick and also with other, some of these other things as well. These are, in some cases, he's having sex with seminarians. These are grown men who he allegedly lured into bed and then had sex with. But as a grown man, if you let another man lure you into bed, and then you willingly, with no resistance, engage in sex acts with him, does that belong in the same category as the 12-year-old kids who are raped by men twice their size?
This is interesting. So rape is rape, obviously. And there are many people in positions of power who use their power and coerce people into having sex with them. Is that the same thing as raping an underage child? No. But it is still rape and it's still non-consensual sex. And we can talk about the differences there and what you believe is worse. That doesn't mean that it's not non-consensual sex anymore, just because there's degrees of how immoral we believe it to be. So I just think it's ridiculous that he's talking about this. A lot of, though, conservatives ignore pedophilia in the church. So thankfully, he's actually bringing that up. Ben?
Yeah, I also find it noteworthy that he just brushes over the pedophile member of the clergy raping young children. He literally says, well, there's the cases of 12-year-olds, but let's focus on how good the guy is in other areas and how his sex should be allowed in other areas. It's just pretty disgusting that these are the hills that these people choose to die on. Who are you fighting this fight for? Priests who pledge to be celibate and then use their power to have sex with their parishioners? I don't understand what, or is this guy just, again, is Matt Walsh trying to lay the ground for him being able to take advantage of his own employees? Who knows? But it just seems like it's either unnecessarily done to drive a wedge between his followers and reasonable people, or there's some protesting that's going on a little too much there.
Yeah, definitely. I have been wondering lately, like, where did this guy come from? Where did he get his start? Like, we all know he sucks. And it seems like I just heard about him because he was saying ridiculous, outlandish things. So Media Matters did a write-up on pretty much where Matt Walsh came from. It's called the Matt and Crank Program. And it's about his history as a radio host. He was a radio guy. They found him defending political violence, performing racist impressions of black men, and of course, promoting teen pregnancy on this radio show. So in a 2013 blog post, Walsh wrote the following: in modern Western history or society, we've delayed the onset of adulthood instead of inventing a new sort of human, the teenager. The teenager exists in this limbo which we've created. We call it adolescence. At about 16, you're an adult who is mature and can make decisions. You are that at 16. I don't care what anybody says. And if you're going to tell me it's different, well, then how come for the first 10,000 years of human civilization, that is the way it was? And Matt Walsh never apologized for any of those ridiculous comments. So this is a tweet where Matt Walsh said, "This is the point in the cancellation where the target is supposed to fall to his knees and beg for forgiveness from a bunch of slandering trolls. I will be skipping that part of the ceremony. I apologize for nothing. Piss off. Thank you." So his idea that when you're a teenager and your brain is definitely not fully developed yet, most of the time your body's not fully developed as an adult yet because you're going through puberty and a transition to become an adult. Matt Walsh has decided that instead he believes pedophilia is okay. And he's gonna say that being a teenager is a social construct, right? And it's because he's such a free thinker, but these are the same people who will reject the idea that someone can be transgender and someone can be gay, ignoring that heteronormativity and gender are social constructs themselves. Being a teenager is a really real physical phase of your life where you're going through puberty. You're not an adult yet, your body and brain aren't fully developed. That seems clear to me, but this guy is just a weirdo and he's paid to distract people from what's really going on in the country. Ben?
Yeah, the best part of his argument there was, if it's not appropriate to have sex with 16-year-olds, and why was it done for 10,000 years? What was the rest of his statement there? If you're not supposed to take a rock and hit a woman on the head and drag her to your cave with it, then why was that how our species started? I mean, the argument is without reason, and that's the way he seems to wade in that pool quite a bit.
Yeah, all the time with this guy. And it's ridiculous because here he is advocating for people having sex with underage people. And what is the right doing right now? Accusing people who are transgender or drag queens as being pedophiles when they're literally advocating for us to be able to have underage sex. Like, those two things don't make sense. You're like, these people are bad and we're calling them pedophiles, but also we really believe, as a part of our freedom as individuals, we should be able to have sex with teenagers. What? How are these people on the same team? Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of drag queens that are trying to seduce 16-year-olds. I do know the people that are defended by people like Matt Walsh, like the Kevin Spaceys of the world. Those people totally fine, apparently. But if you dress up and have fun and explore the range of your identity, that is a crime that must end now. It's very confusing.